Good afternoon. I would like to begin by getting your consent to film and publish this interview.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so will you please first introduce yourself and include your teaching position and education level?
All right, so my name is Crystal Bogus. I'm a special education teacher. I've been in the field of special education for 15 years. I've served as a service care provider prior to entering education, entering the public school. I taught at Giles High School for 13 years, where I served students with disabilities in inclusive settings mostly, and then some pull-out resource support. And then the last 2 years, I have transferred to Narrows High School and was asked to revamp and redesign, develop the community-based instruction program with students with severe disabilities. So credential-wise, I have an undergraduate degree from Radford University in mental retardation, K-12. And then I have a master's degree from Radford University in severe disabilities, adapted curriculum. And then I have endorsements in emotional disturbance and learning disabilities. And I just recently, in May, completed my EDS in educational leadership to aspire to be the director of special ed. And I am currently enrolled in the Virginia Department of Education Aspiring Leadership Academy to prepare me, hopefully, for that role. So
That is a lot of things, a lot of credentials there. So, in your experiences for your EDS, how have you used research, or have you used research, and if so, please describe it.
All right, so I've taken a couple of research courses. One at the master's level, in which I was asked to research a topic that was of importance to me, and so I completed a lot of research on transition and rural communities, like how do we provide the right supports for students with disabilities. And then in my doctoral program, I had to do advanced research and writing, and had the chance to review actual dissertations from other doctoral students, in which I had to review, huge packets of information, and I had to be able to determine what type of study they used, whether their research was valid, whether what they were able to produce was an evidence-based practice. Like, could we actually take what they did and implement it in a classroom or within a program? And so
That's some exciting stuff.
yeah, and I also got to publish an article in a journal.
So exciting.
Yeah, so I got to actually do the research, and my focus on that one was parent-teacher partnerships, and really trying to figure out a way to get the school system and home to be involved.
That's
So,
interesting. Okay, cool. Throughout your career, have you utilized research in the classroom and other in your education as well? I guess yes.
Right. Yeah, it's been sometimes it's just as simple as researching to figure out what's the best wheelchair to meet the needs of a student. It's looking online to just figure out what companies have to offer, because they're always reinventing something. And then sometimes it's as serious as looking into developing a seclusion or restraint policy, which has been a huge topic buzzword, or co-teaching practices if a school system is going to something different. And probably the biggest thing for me is using that United States Department of Education and the VDOE websites to be able to keep up with what they're putting out there. And they've actually got a What Works clearinghouse page, where you can get on there and find research that they've already determined is quality and is an evidence-based practice, to where you know that what you're reading off of their website is going to produce something that they are saying is valid, which is kind of nice that you don't have to filter through that. So
Right. And do you have anything specific to your classroom or procedures that you look for, or is it just back to the VDOE?
So with my current program, a lot of it is based on probably my own position, my own emotion for where I think the kids need to be. And so a lot of the research I do right now is just to make sure that I'm meeting the needs and staying up with the current practices and what's being implemented.
Okay. So a common belief of those unfamiliar with education is that special education does not include literacy instruction. What are your thoughts on this belief?
I have to say I completely disagree with that statement, but I think any special education teacher would.
Right.
And so I may not have the training of the in-depth content and instruction part of it, but the fact that we are so filled with strategies and helping figure out a different way to do things and have them learn, it is huge. Probably literacy is one of the top priorities because we want every kid to be literate to be able to be a member of society. And so I think a lot of those things are finding a systematic program that the students can like engage in, and understanding that students with special needs often need a site-based word program as opposed to a phonetic, because they really need to just see the word and see a picture of it and make the relation, and they don't understand the blends, they don't understand how the words are put together. So
that's very interesting. I never thought about that. So what role, if any, does literacy instruction play in your classroom? And if it does, then can you define how that works in your classroom for me?
All right, so my current classroom, being students with severe disabilities, I do have an accountability measure where I'm responsible for conducting VAP assessments, in which I actually have to become a content area teacher and a special ed teacher at the same time. And so with the VAP assessments, it happens in 8th and 11th grade at the secondary level, and I have to evaluate my students in reading, writing, math, and science. And these their objectives are based off or aligned with the standards of learning for that grade level for that content. So the State Department has looked at the 8th and 11th grade, let's say reading SOLs, and they've pulled out pieces of those and made those our VAP objectives. And we go through and choose so many each year that the student has to be evaluated on, and they can never repeat the same one. And so the fact that I have to do that and match it and then figure out a way for them to demonstrate it, to me is a way to incorporate it. Also part of their academic instruction time during the day is we use the EdMark reading program on the computer. It's independent based, it is site based word. It's an actual old program, but it's still effective, and it also offers me the ability to conduct a pre and post test at the end of each lesson, and I can evaluate how much they're learning, and also the program won't let them move any further until they achieve a certain level on each lesson. So that's something we do daily.
And so does research affect your literacy instruction? And if so, would you explain how?
So I'm always looking for new information to move students forward, and especially those with disabilities, because I feel like that's my job as a classroom teacher. The research for literacy programs that get implemented like within my classroom or in the county are often not based on my choice. They're often, somebody else picks it and I'm kind of told to implement it. But probably the way that I do it is collecting the data, actually implementing it, and realizing that I need to also build in a functional and practical way for them to do it. So is it that we do literacy through using a recipe, or do we do literacy through our morning routine? I mean, it might not always be just sitting down with a book and doing it that way. So
thank you. And what types, you just touched on this a little bit, what types of data collection are you using in your classroom, and what makes these methods effective for you and your students?
So I collect data constantly. So I'm kind of not always a numbers girl, but in the end, that's what special education is all about, is I have to show where the kids started and where they ended. And so as far as the data collection goes, outside the typical school day of the regular data collection, I do the word reading progress for their word cards and word list, and I tailor that depending on where the student is. I also collect behavioral data sheets that are sent to doctors that determine whether the medications are working, determine on what services and supports may be needed. And I also have an online unique program in which we do pre, mid, and post tests on all academic areas, including reading. So the academic and behavioral data are used to develop the students' annual IEPs, their 9-week progress reports. They're used to be able to give the doctors some feedback, and then of course increase student learning. I mean, if we've been stagnant for a while, that data tells me where I need to go next.
And what types of reading strategies have you found most effective throughout your career, not specifically just these students?
So when I used to teach English 9 resource years ago, I found that the first thing that I had to do was I had to find texts that were high interest to the students. Like if they were interested in it, they've already shut me out. And then also I had to find reading selections that were age appropriate but set at a lower reading level, because they have to show that they can make it to an end point. Some strategies that I used to use was books on tape. I would find whatever book we were using on tape. I would use short reading checks, like quizzes at the end of like each chapter, and I would not do a full unit test or book test because they weren't able to perform across that length of time, which a lot of them were participating in a VSEP assessment at that point anyway. As far as actual individual strategies, I used a Post-it notes all the time, and I would give them a stack of Post-it notes on their desk, and then each student would be asked to, as we were reading, they would follow along, and they would like write something that interested them, or a question that they didn't understand, or they would write a word that they didn't know, and then we would talk about all those Post-it notes at the end of class, like whatever they had written. Didn't have to be complete sentences, just it had to be a thought that they had that came up. And then we also used links tables a lot, where they had to pick 5 vocabulary words, or 5 words that they didn't know each week, and they had to draw a picture and write a sentence, find a synonym, and we used those instead of like a spelling test, because let's get real, we live in an electronic world, and they have access, if they can get close to spelling the word, they can figure out how to spell it.
Right.
They just need to know what it means. So,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.